Hi, Tom.
Hi, Meg.
How are you?
I'm well.
Good.
And welcome to Mondays with Meg.
And Tom.
And this is, I guess, Series 2.
Yes.
A special February series.
Yeah.
Where we answer questions that people have sent to us, just kind of have conversations about them. So if you want to send a question to us, you still can.
Please do.
Please do. Just send it to the church at church@parkwaypres.com and we'll get it.
It's that easy.
Yes, it is.
It's that easy. Yeah, send us your questions. I'd love to hear what questions you might have.
So what's our first question, Meg?
Oh, our first question. I am going to pick a lighthearted one.
Okay.
To start.
All right.
What is your favorite piece of Bible trivia? Don't laugh at this question.
Well, my favorite piece of Bible trivia is that the word Jehovah is not actually in the Bible. That the word, this is something I learned when I took Hebrew, that the word Jehovah are the consonants of the Hebrew word Yahweh and the vowels of the Hebrew word Adonai.
Yes.
Because I'm really not supposed to, and now I'm saying it twice.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed
You're really
to say.
going for it.
I'm not supposed to say Yahweh.
Right.
And in the original Hebrew, it's just consonants. There was no vowels. So when later on they added these little vowel symbols, because by tradition, instead of saying Yahweh, which I've now said for 3 times, you're supposed to say Adonai when you saw that. And so they added the vowels for Adonai. But when you kind of read it out, it became Yehovah.
Right.
Kind of a Englishy, Latin-y kind of thing. And that's where the word Jehovah comes from. But it's not an actual word. It's those 2 words, consonants and vowels, mixed up and put together.
Okay, I think my favorite piece of Bible trivia is in the flood narrative. The first bird that Noah sends out isn't a dove. It's a raven. He sends out 3 birds. 3 birds. The first one is a raven.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is a dove. The next one is a dove, maybe the same dove, and it's the 3rd bird that comes back with the olive branch. But a raven is actually the first bird sent out. It never comes up.
Never comes back.
It never, yeah. So that one's interesting that I've gotten that question in real trivia before, and I'm like, oh, it's this, and people on my team are usually like, no, it's not.
No, it's a dove.
And I'm like, yes, please tell me how I'm wrong about this one, guys.
But that's what we were talking about earlier. My other thing I find interesting about Bible trivia is how wrong we are often about the stories that we think are in there.
Well, it's the popular things become.
Yeah.
That's what we go with.
Like how many animals did Noah put on the ark? This is trivia right there. This might be in your exam on Friday.
Well, am I given a real number? Because all I can now think of is the 2, the pairs, and then there's like the 7 and the 7, and.
Well, that's what I mean. Everyone thinks it's just the 2.
2 by 2.
But then in another place,
right?
Then it's like a certain amount of clean
and unclean.
And unclean.
Right.
And they designate that, even though the designation of clean and unclean doesn't actually happen until later.
Way later.
After the Noah story.
Right.
But that's those weird little trivia pieces.
I think that was added in.
I think it's just a later version of the story.
Yeah.
See, well, I mean, there's trivia that we as Presbyterians would say that maybe others who aren't part of our tradition would say, that the Bible was, parts of it were edited together from different versions of the same story.
Right. In different
at different times.
Yeah.
From different places.
By different people.
By different people, even. Yeah, for a lot of people, that blows their mind. Which kind of pops into one of your other questions there, which one of your friends loves to ask about that Genesis story.
Oh, yeah. I always go the Watchers, but yeah. So why don't churches dig deeper into Genesis 6? Talking about the Nephilim and sons of God and heroes of renown. I think it just doesn't come up.
One, it doesn't come up. It's one of those odd little fragments.
But it did kind of come up in Jude. When we were talking about Jude yesterday. It did come up in Jude,
but remember, since we follow the lectionary in preaching, Jude never comes up in the lectionary. Right. So it's rare that people even encounter Jude.
Get that.
And then Jude is referring not necessarily to Genesis, but more of the way that story is told in First Enoch, which is not in the Bible.
Right.
Which is, again, lots of more interesting Bible trivia. There's so much to be known, and what's so disappointing sometimes is that for some churches and traditions, they really kind of
you just don't
quash a lot of stuff.
Right.
You just don't talk about it. Why not? Why not talk about stuff? Those questions lead to some fun discussions.
More questions.
Not
always answers.
Nah.
Well, it's like I was talking to somebody this morning about, I'm taking the Bible content exam.
We will post at the end of this a nice little blurb whether or not you passed your Bible content exam that you were taking on Friday,
February 4th.
I didn't even know what today is. February 4th.
So by the time this video comes out, I'll have already taken it.
And we will know.
And we'll know.
Because don't you know right away?
It's vague. One email says yes. Another email says I'll know in 2 weeks. But it's online, so I think it's just going to grade it when
right away.
I'll be so mad if it doesn't.
2 weeks.
But yeah, but it's with the questions like the Bible trivia and like the other, why don't we dig deeper into these things? It's like, man, if you sit down and read cover to cover, which most people don't do, but there's so much stuff that you would never know unless you read it.
Right. And more than just read the words, I mean, read it and begin to go,
we have to read
what is this talking about?
Right.
Being a little more careful. So when you come to, and I say Nephilim, you say Nephilim. See, we're not even
Nephilim,
sure.
I mean, that one, there's an extra I, so that's probably...
I don't know.
Correct.
I passed my Hebrew. I did not excel at Hebrew. But see, that's one of those things there. It's interesting to talk about and explore the ideas and to get back into some of the culture and how they might have seen things differently and how
what
Judaism
was going on?
Changed.
Why was this?
And to that. But the Nephilim don't really impact us.
No, I don't know.
Personal faith today too much. I mean, I don't think people are
I think it's more of an
way or the other.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that it's like.
It's interesting.
It is interesting, but when you read Genesis 6, like the first part of it, in talking about how the angels come down, find the women attractive, have sex with the women, they have children, right? Like that's what happens. Well, it's later than in Genesis 6 is when God goes, "Oh, I made a mistake. Like I regret allowing this to happen. Like I regret putting humanity on the earth for this to be a thing. I like Noah and his family, but everybody else has to go."
Right.
But it's so like the flood seems to be a direct result of
the way it's written. It kind
it's like
flows.
This is why.
Follows.
Like
that was part of the whole downfall of everything. That made everything so bad.
Right. And I would argue that it is. Like, that goes with the narrative that's being told. Like, that's just, like... I think that section of Genesis maybe is just, like, the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak. Like, there is so much of the negative stuff kind of leading up to then. And then that happens, and God's just like, okay, Okay,
I'm done.
I'm done. This is it. You're out. Bye. Clearly in the Old Testament, we see the wrath of God as a real thing.
All right. And regret. That was always the conversations.
Yeah.
Regret. That was interesting to people that I would have. Can God regret something? Because we're so taught more of the Greek concept of perfection, and God has to be the most perfect of perfect.
Right. But in the Old Testament, God regrets so much
Judaism,
that we get a flood.
God isn't seen as the most perfect of perfect. And even saying something like that again will stun people. I know it will blow the top of their heads off.
Right. Well, we're not trying to offend, but I'm trying to make you think.
Yeah.
No, it is interesting to think about, now that we've gone away from the questions, but created more of conversation. Like the Old Testament, the thought process around the Old Testament God and the New Testament God. It's like there's a lot of, I'm going to butcher this word, but anthropomorphic attributes. Yeah, that we see God has more of in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. And then I think in the New Testament with Jesus as a human being.
I think part of that is there's more, God has more emotion. Mm-hmm. Shows, as the stories are told, and it is, God is much more reacts and is more emotional, and is much more in the moment and dangerous at some points. Right. God's so in the moment, but reactionary. Yeah. It's the way they told those stories back then.
Right. Well, and it's the way it's written. Like, because when you look at, like, the Hebrew, like, when you get down to it, it's like the verbs and the adjectives and those kinds of things. You're like, yeah, that's very real. Like, that's coming from God. The Lord has said this. And then this happened.
All right. But then we picture Jesus as always kind of, calm and even keel.
I don't, though.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
I don't think, I think that's the influence of the Johannine Jesus, but.
Yeah, no, I don't. I really think the first thing that I think about with Jesus is him getting angry and flipping the money changers table in the temple. Like, that is like, before I think about the birth narrative and before I think about other parables and before I think about the death and resurrection, it's no, Jesus got so angry that this man.
So there's a couple of places, because something like that, it's amazing again the discussions you have with people.
Right.
Of, was Jesus angry? Was it almost like religious theater? Was it, does Jesus get angry? There's this one story with a leper who comes.
Right.
And I think the Greek word is, if you read it from the Greek, he's angry. Jesus gets, his response to this leper is anger. It's not our regular imagined Jesus response to a leper. It's not patient. It's not, I'm ready to help you.
Right.
There's an anger that comes, but as they translate that into English,
they take the anger away.
They take the anger away, and then it becomes a footnote. But who reads footnotes?
Me, I read footnotes.
But some of that is, again,
right.
When you begin to get into the Bible and read it and really get into it, there's all this stuff that breaks our assumptions.
Right.
And it's interesting how far we go to hang on to our assumptions.
But not even our assumptions.
What's right
it's like
in
the
front
assumptions
of
others that we've just accepted.
Right. And so and that's again what's interesting with
for so many
well,
years.
some of the trivia is how much we assume is in there, or it says this, when you actually
Right.
go to
You look
see
at
what
it.
it says and what it's saying,
was
if you
different.
don't allow those assumptions to dictate
Hold,
what you're
yeah.
seeing before your own eyes, you'll be surprised what's in there.
You gotta pay attention. You gotta
You
look
gotta
at
pay
it.
attention.
You gotta read it. You gotta actually read it. And the footnotes.
And the
The
footnotes.
footnotes are important.
You never know what a footnote might reveal. Translation
Right.
is a difficult art form, and it's not a perfect kind of one-to-one.
Oh gosh, no.
And trying to get nuance,
Right.
the nuance of language, and it really kind of
Yeah, and like the wordplay and like all that stuff that doesn't, like, there's so much stuff that
Right.
doesn't translate well into English.
and it helps to break a little bit if you go in with if you go into those classes feeling like of absolutes. It absolutely has to be seen this way.
But you're absolutely gonna have a hard time
You're absolutely
with when this one word could mean 4 different things, and guess
Right.
what? All 4 things change
right
the
and you're-
meaning of the sentence.
Right, and so that's part of our training,
Right.
so that we can have these kinds of discussions, and not
Yeah.
we don't flip out with things. Again, you don't know how people. It shakes sometimes, folks.
Right. Right.
But I think they train us this way, so we can say, "Hey,
Yeah.
it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. We're looking at this.
It's
we can talk about
okay.
this. We can ask all those
Ask
questions
the
you've always
questions.
wanted to ask."
Even the hard ones.
Right. Even the hard ones. You need an end.
I don't know. How do we wrap that up? We'll see you next time on Mondays with Meg.
And Tom.